Hello. So this is going to be a reading for our biology evolution test. So, Adriana, Devin, London, Haley, Gavin, this is just for you five. Five? Yeah, five. So, what's going to happen is I'm going to put each of the pictures up on the screen. I'm going to go through reading them, give you a chance to answer, and then I'll move on to the next question. If at any point you decide that you need a break, remember, testing mods say you can have a break every 5 or 10 minutes for a couple minutes. Pause the video, head on out, take your quick break, come back, continue as you were. So, this way, you still get all the goodness of hearing my voice and getting the questions actually read along with a little bit of modification, particularly for some of the language and stuff like that. And you can still get the test in so our fourth and final marking period can come in your favor. Remember, pass this class, you pass the course, you pass the regents, and you don't ever need to take either of those again. So, I hope this helps. As always, any questions, let me know. But otherwise, you will find a link to the test right here in your Schoology folder. So if you take a look down here at the bottom, evolution test with the little linky symbol. If you click on that, it will take you directly to the real thing. And feel free to pause here, open Schoology, click on the evolution test to get that open. All right, so let's start the questions. So, they aren't really numbered, so I'm just going to go in order from top to bottom. So, first of all, this picture is showing the events of. And here we see a white tree with moths and a bird eating a dark moth. And here later on we see that now that tree is dark and the bird's eating light moths. So, is this an example of natural selection, descent with modification, mutation, or asexual reproduction? So the bird eating the dark moths on the light tree and then later on eating the light moths on the dark tree. Would that be natural selection, descent with modification, mutation, or asexual reproduction? Question number two. Imagine that members of a population died from a chance event, like a flood or a tornado. None of their adaptations, none of their physical traits are going to help them with this. It doesn't matter how smart, how strong, how fast they are. It doesn't matter if they can camouflage well. Whatever their traits were, it just doesn't matter. This is just pure bad luck. Yes or no question. Is this natural selection? So, if things die from just pure bad luck, has nothing to do with their adaptations. Is this natural selection? Yes, it is natural selection. Or no, it is not natural selection. All right, question three. This is a picture of a cave minnow that you see right here, a fish that no longer has functional eyes. There's still some eye tissue, so if you see this little shiny bit up here in the head where the pointer's going around, there's still like an eye in there, but it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't do anything. It's just sort of leftover. So the eyes of this fish, because they're leftover, because they're not used anymore, would be considered homologous, vestigial, analogous, or adaptive. So when something is left over and it's not used anymore, like the eyes of a cave minnow, would that be homologous? Remember what homo means. Vestigial, analogous, or adaptive. Number four. In the last 17 years, coyotes have become major pests for many countries, including America. As a result, we have begun to poison them by laying out trapped food. Many have died, but the poison is working less and less every year. Why is that? So the coyotes are problems. We put out the poison, and it used to work really well, but now it doesn't. Why? Is it because we make less poison and it doesn't kill as many? Is it because coyotes stopped eating meat when they all became vegan? Is it that the poison is very strong, but the bait is also very expensive? Or is it that most of the coyotes that were susceptible died, leaving only the resistant ones? Sorry, hold on. My cat is currently clawing at the door. Get out. All right. So, moving on to question, I think, 5. A bird chases a moth. The moth flaps wildly as it tries to flee. On the wing is a flash of white, and the bird flies off. What would we expect to see in the next generation? So the bird is trying to eat the moth flaps, the bird sees this flash of white on its wings, and the bird leaves. Would we expect next generation that there's going to be more birds that eat moths, more moths with white spots, more moths without white spots, or more birds that avoid white spots? Which one of these would we expect to see in the next generation if on the wing of a moth a flash of white scared the bird away? More moths that eat birds, more moths with white spots, more moths without white spots, or more birds that avoid white spots? Question 6. Which of the following is not part of Darwin's theory of descent with modification? So this goes back to one of the early slides. Which one of these is not part of Darwin's original plan, his original idea that led him to the concept, the idea of evolution? So, did Darwin think that animals produce more young than can survive? That animals must compete for limited resources? That the biggest and strongest animal will survive the most? Or that animals that are well suited for their environment succeed? One of these is not part of Darwin's theory. So, which one is not part of it? That animals produce more young than can survive, that animals must compete for limited resources. This means that they kind of have to fight over limited resources, which would be things like food, water, mates, shelter, land, things like that. The biggest and strongest animal will survive the most, or that animals that are well suited for their environment succeed. Which one of those was not part of Darwin's theory? Next, the Stegosaurus is a huge armored reptile with defensive spikes. When predators attack, the plates protect and deter the predators. This means that those plates are they a high fitness trait, a low fitness trait, a moderate fitness trait, or an ultra powerful mega fitness? I'll give you guys a hint. It's not ultra powerful mega. That's not an evolutionary thing. So those plates that protect the dinosaur and deter the predators, are they high fitness, low fitness, or moderate fitness? Number 8, I think. As a species evolves, more and more of its alleles in the population become the higher fitness trait. Which of the following explains this in common terms? So this gets a little bit more complicated. But does this mean that the better the trait, they make more babies, which might also have the good trait? So after several generations, the good trait will be more common. That natural selection will pick out the best traits and eliminate them first. So then the survivors will only pass on the traits that made them unsuccessful. Was it a magical wizard fairy that says Godzilla, pop, and it happens? Or that survival is based on making children and nothing to do with the traits that the organism has? Sorry, it's bouncing all over the place. So, which one explains this idea of the population becoming higher fitness in common terms? The better traits mean more babies, which might have the trait, which increases the chance. that natural selection eliminates the best traits, so the survivors pass on the unsuccessful ones, Godzilla Pop, or that survival is based on children and that has nothing to do with the traits the organism has. All right, next. Critics of the theory of evolution state that we have never observed evolution actually occur. Which of the following is a very real world example of evolution occurring? Something that we have seen ourselves. So is it that dinosaurs evolved from their earlier ancestors over many millions of years? That birds are the modern day descendants of dinosaurs and split from them only 275 million years ago? That since the 1950s, hairstyles have changed a lot, and people used to use so much product in their hair that their hair was essentially plastic? Or that the bacteria have evolved resistance to antibiotics over the last 30 years? Which one of those is going to be a real world example of us seeing evolution happening? Dinosaurs evolved over many millions of years. Birds split from dinosaurs 275 million years ago. That we've changed hairstyle since the 1950s, or bacterial resistance. Number 10. Modern evolutionary theory uses the work of what two scientists? So here's a big poster. It says natural selection of beetles. Variations. Some beetles are green and some are brown in the population. Then, green beetles tend to get eaten by birds and reproduce less often than brown beetles do. Traits are inheritable. The surviving brown beetle babies have the surviving brown beetles have brown beetle babies because the traits are in the genes. And then finally, the more advantageous trait, the better the trait, the brown color, becomes more common in the population. So, what two scientists were responsible for us understanding this whole process? Was it Mendel and Lamarck, Darwin and Lamarck, Mendel and Locke, or Darwin and Mendel? So, which two scientists help us fully understand modern evolution? Is it Mendel and Lamarck, Darwin and Lamarck, Mendel and Locke, or Darwin and Mendel? 11. What is this an image of? So here we see the arm of a human, the arm of a dog, a bird, and a whale. We see some color coding across the different bones. What is this an example of? Is this showing us homologous structures? Remember what homo means. Analogous structures, vestigial structures, or third femoral arteries? So, these different arms and their color coding and stuff, are those homologous, analogous, vestigial, or third femoral arteries? Next, peacock tail feathers in males, because only males have the big long peacock feathers, is an example of. So, those big, long, brightly colored tail feathers, is that sexual selection, natural selection, male selection, or artificial selection? Which one of these four is responsible for male peacocks only having those huge, long, brightly colored feathers? Sexual selection, natural selection, male selection, or artificial selection? Bats like to eat bugs. Bugs don't like to be eaten. Which adaptation would help them avoid the bat's sonar? So remember, the sonar is the sound that the bat emits and it bounces back off of objects to tell them where they are. So which one of these traits would help the bugs to not get eaten by bats? A new color to blend in, faster wings to fly away, better eyes to see bats at night, or a new shell that absorbs sonar? So one of these is really going to help them survive so the bats don't eat them. Is it going to be a new color to blend in, faster wings to fly, better eyes to see, or a new shell that absorbs? Next. Sharks are fish that have cartilage for a skeleton. Most other fish have bones. Which of the following statements about these two would be accurate evolutionarily? So, sharks are fish. They have cartilage for a skeleton. Other fish are fish, but they have bones for their skeleton. Which one of these statements is going to be accurate by evolution? That they are not related, that they are very closely related, that they're related but really far apart, like the difference between lions and beetles, or that they are related but closely, like rabbits and beavers. So they're not like super close, but they are definitely part of the same group. So either they're not related at all, they're very closely related, they're related but far apart, or they're related and pretty close. Not super close, but pretty close. So fish with cartilage, or sorry, sharks, which are fish with cartilage, and fish, which are fish with bones. Why is variation so important to species? Variation are those differences. Why is it important that in every population we have a lot of different animals with a lot of different traits? Is it so it allows them to look different? That it allows them to eat different things? That it allows animals to survive freak events like a storm, like a tornado or something? Or that it allows animals to survive events like environmental changes, meaning like it starts to get colder, or it starts to get warmer, or some new animal shows up. That's what we mean by environmental changes. So why is variation important? So they look different, so they eat different, so they can survive a tornado, or so they can survive changes. Turtles evolved a shell as protection. Which of the following examples best explains this process of evolving the shell? Now, I see that this kind of bleeds out on the side here, but generation by generation, females were drawn to males with larger shells and more colors, leading to disruptive selection and our bigger shell. That generation by generation, predators ate turtles with larger shells, leading to stabilizing selection and ultimately a smaller, thinner shell. That generation by generation, predators ate turtles with smaller shells, leading to directional selection and ultimately a turtle with a shell. Or that generation by generation, females were drawn to males with more colors, leading to disruptive selection and many colored shells. Which one of those would describe how a turtle or the turtle species evolved their shell for protection? That, once again, females were drawn to males with larger shells, disruptive selection. That predators ate large shells, stabilizing the selection around little shells. That predators ate little shells, directionally pushing it towards larger shells. Or that females were drawn to colors, disruptive selection for shell as protection. Next, a butterfly is poisonous, and to advertise this poison, it has bright orange wings. A bird sees this and darts in to eat it, but then recognizes that color, goes, oh crap, that's orange, I know what orange does, and it doesn't eat it. What would you expect in the next generation of butterflies? So, in the next generation of butterflies, would you expect the same bright orange color, a brighter orange color, a dimmer orange color, or larger wings? The bird darted in to eat it, then saw the bright orange wings and said, nope, not doing it. How would that affect the next generation? Would they have the same bright orange color, a brighter orange color, or a dimmer orange color? It won't be larger wings. All right, salamanders have evolved the ability to regenerate limbs like arms, legs, and tails. Which of the following is a good reason why this would happen? Is it that regeneration helps them grow faster? That young salamanders can hide from predators? That healing from wounds could help salamanders eat more food? Or that the predator gets something to eat and the salamander can recover? Which one of these would be a good reason why salamanders evolved this ability to regenerate their arms, their legs, or their tail? When we find the fossils of a T Rex, we compare them to Allosaurus. They're very similar. Same teeth, Same skull. One of them, the T Rex, is just bigger than the other one, the Allosaurus. What does this suggest about their evolutionary relationship? Does it suggest that they are related? That they are not related? That they likely ate each other? Or that they could procreate and produce offspring? So when we look at them and they're really similar other than the size, does that suggest that they're related? They're not related? They ate each other, or they could procreate and produce offspring? A species of beetle is green, brown, yellow, and gold, four different colors. A new predator moves in the air and starts eating all the beetles they can find. Which of the following best describes the effect it would have on the beetle species? So they start green, brown, yellow, and gold. Predator shows up, starts eating any of them that he can catch. Which one of these would be true? In a city landscape, only the green beetle would be left. In a desert landscape, only the green beetle would be left. In a cave, you would only find the yellow beetles. Or in a forest, only the green beetles would be left. Which of those is true if we started with green, brown, yellow, and gold, and a predator showed up and starts eating all of them that he can find? Which one of these matches the environment to the trait? Lamarck had some ideas about evolution even before Darwin did, but Lamarck was wrong about one big concept. Which of the following was his mistake? So Lamarck had a good idea, but he missed a point. Which point was it that he missed? Did he miss the idea that the best trait gives an advantage to survival? Or did he miss that traits would be passed on to the offspring? Was he wrong that organisms could change over time? Or was he wrong that the traits you gain in your lifetime were passed on to your offspring? So, which one of these was he wrong about? That the best traits give an advantage, that traits will be passed on to the offspring, that organisms change over time, or that the traits gained in your lifetime get passed on to your offspring? Charles Darwin believed that natural selection formed all living things. Which of the following statement is most accurate for Darwin's belief? So, which one of these really matches what Darwin thought? That a giraffe stretches its neck so its neck gets longer and longer? Did Darwin think that a beetle wants to fly so it just makes its own wings? Did Darwin believe that only the most successful lions make enough kills and they pass on their traits to their offspring? Or did Darwin believe that chameleons blend in with their environments and some of them survive to reproduce? So, which one of these? That giraffes stretch their necks to make them longer, that beetles just spontaneously create wings, that successful lions make enough kills to survive and then have offspring, or that chameleons blend in very well and some of them survive to reproduce? Nearing the end. The modern theory of evolution says that evolution takes a long time. Does the modern theory say that evolution is the change in the genes of a species? Does it say that it's based around luck and survival? Or does it say that evolution is the change in the physical traits of an organism? So which one of those is our modern evolution? That it takes a long time, that it's a change in the genes of a species, that it's based around luck and survival, or that it's a change in the physical traits of an organism? The Galapagos helped Darwin come up with his theory due to, so which were the two animals that really helped Darwin out here? Was it finches and tortoises, finches and salamanders, finches and other birds, or finches and barnacles? Which were the two animals he saw in the Galapagos? Finches and tortoises, finches and salamanders, finches and other birds, or finches and barnacles. What is natural selection? So, definition: the concept that the best adapted will survive and pass on the traits that made them successful. The idea that some organisms are good in every environment and they will spread. The theory that organisms need to compete for resources and some are luckier than others. Or a silly idea based around science that's hardly applicable or useful. Which one of those is natural selection? And then which one of these is fitness, as defined by evolution? Is it fitness the ability to do exercises? A measure of your height? How likely your traits are to help you survive? Or how many chances you need to succeed? Which one of those is fitness? When we look at an animal, we say that animal has high fitness. Which one of these do we mean? It can do exercises, it's tall, its traits help it survive, or it needs chances before it can succeed. All right, which of the following is not evidence of evolution? So we went over a bunch of things that were evidence that helped support the theory. One thing is not. Is it the fossil record, storybooks, the geographic distribution of species, or homologous structures? Which one of these is not evidence for evolution? All right, which of the following is a homologous structure? So remember what homo means, that prefix. So, which of the following is a homologous structure? Is it the bones in the arm of a human compared to a whale, a bat, or a lion? So, comparing the bones. The wing of a bird and the wing of a butterfly. The legs of a horse and the tail of a snake. Or leftover structures like our appendix. Which one of those would be the homologous structures? The bones in the arm, the wing of a bird and a butterfly, the legs of a horse, the tail of a snake, or leftover things like our appendix. Next, the appendix is a vestigial organ, something left over from a time previous. Which of the following describes another vestigial organ? So, which one of these things, this was in one of our labs, is vestigial? It's leftover. It's not something that we use anymore. Is it the muscles that we use to move? Do we not use them anymore? Is it our eyes? Do we not use those anymore? Is it the fact that we have opposable thumbs? Do we not use our thumbs anymore? Or is it our wisdom teeth? Do we not use those anymore? Which one of these four do we not use? Almost done. We've only got a couple more. This diagram shows what? So we see this animal and an arrow to this animal, to this one, which then splits to become both of those. So this diagram is showing what? How weird animals look, the evolution of a turtle, the evolution of a bear, or the evolution of a whale. This diagram is showing us which one of these. How weird they look, evolution of a turtle, evolution of a bear, or evolution of a whale. Alright, thorags are an ugly little fish. They use their ugly to hide because they look like rocks and other unappetizing things. But when predators are removed from their ecosystem, there are no predators, they start to become more beautiful year by year. Thorags in zoos are brightly colored and wonderful. What form of natural selection is this? So which form are we seeing where they should be ugly to hide, but when there are no predators, they start to become more and more fancy? Is that directional selection like you see in this bottom graph, where one is being changed over into a new one? Is it disruptive, where the original good is gone and now we have two new traits? Is it stabilizing, where whatever the norm is, everybody becomes that norm? Or is it Darwin, which isn't a form of selection and better not be your answer? All right, for a new species to appear, what needs to happen? There's something very particular that has to happen in order for new species to come about. Do they need some form of food or shelter? Is that what we need for new species? Do they need some kind of genetic change, like a mutation? Does that make new species? Do they need some form of isolation? By isolating them, will that make new species? Or do they only need natural selection? And natural selection will make a new species. Notice it says only natural selection, nothing else. Last two questions. A river flowing through a field after a flood separates two populations of horses. They won't cross the water. It is not worth the risk. This is an example of. So, this river maybe it floods and it just like carves a channel right through this field. Now the one group of horses is separated in two groups. They won't swim across. Is this a geographic isolation, a behavioral isolation, a temporal isolation, or an allopatric postzygotic isolation? Which one of these is accurate for a river separating the two groups? Geographic, behavioral, temporal, or allopatric postzygotic? Last question. Bacteria evolved resistance to antibiotics over many, many generations of constant use of antibiotics. How did this happen? So we talked about it, had a whole lesson about this. Was it that bacteria picked the best traits to survive the antibiotics? That an evil, mad scientist created them, genetically engineering them to resist all treatments? Is it that the most resistant ones survived treatment after treatment just got stronger and stronger? Or is it that we treated the bacteria back in 1947 and after that they were just resistant to everything? So which one of these is the correct story for how bacterial resistance happened? Okay. I clicked there. It messes up things when I click. So this is your test. Once you're done with it, you will hit your little submit button, I think at the bottom or up here at send, and it will instantly tell you your grade. I hope this helps, and I hope I see everybody on Monday.